you've been one of the things you said in the last podcast was that you've been allowing yourself to like fuck off a lot more.
Yeah.
And the two things you've been fucking off with is Mario Kart and Breaking Bad, right? Like those are the two things you literally he delivers the video to me last night, and normally after the video gets delivered, we have a conversation about like title and
normally we don't get
thumbnail and,
delivered at night. Normally I deliver it at like 3 a.m. and you're already asleep, and then you watch it in the morning.
facts. And then I call you in the morning. But
Sure.
anyway, as soon as I get it is when we have a conversation about it. But like I was like, all right, like I got the video, like I'm about to, have a conversation with him. And I was like, hey man, he's like, yeah, I'm about to go play Mario Kart though. So can we talk about this another time? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem.
I was like, I'm done with work. I'm going to go play Mario Kart now. Yeah, so Matthew's girlfriend has a Nintendo Switch, so we've been playing a lot of Mario Kart. I also got my Wii from my parents' house, so we've been playing Guitar Hero and Wii Sports.
We've
Me
been
and
playing
AJ.
golf.
We've been playing golf, and dude, AJ thinks it's the funniest thing when me and my brother play Wii together because we're just straight insulting each other the whole time.
It's like Crystalia and Brian Callen. You guys are just
Dude,
talking mad shit.
It's so funny. Like, so they were playing like this pool game, and then Matt. So what Matt does is he'll like when they're playing pool, he'll just like go so extra with it, and it's so fucking funny because he's like insulting him as he's doing it. He'll be like, yeah, it's so funny.
He's like,
and
you
then,
bitch.
Yeah, he's
Like, he'll
"You
be like
bitch,"
hitting it,
and he's like
and then
doing that thing.
And then like we'll miss and we'll be like, nice one, you stupid fucking bitch. Or like we just rip each other apart, and AJ's just sitting there like dying laughing, and we were like, yeah, I guess we're done with this. And AJ's like, no, keep playing, dude. I'm
I was
enjoying
like,
this
I'll
too
pay
much.
you guys to keep playing. It's that funny.
It's literally like sibling rivalry, but all like a joke. And
Yeah.
since you guys have been watching Breaking Bad, you've been influenced by Jesse.
I just started watching Breaking Bad.
What you know
I
about
started
that?
yesterday,
bitch?
and I watched the whole first
Bitch.
season. I literally was like, Chris D'Elia was talking about how he started watching it again, or he started watching it for the first time recently. And it's like one of those shows that I knew was really good, and like everyone always talked about, and I just never ended up watching it. I watched
That's
like,
how
a
I
couple
feel
episodes
about-
with my roommates.
That's how I feel about Westworld. Like you and Kat don't ever shut up about Westworld.
Dude, to
And
be honest, the third season hasn't been that great. I've been watching the third season, and it's kind of like,
Well, Black Mirror too. I mean,
Black
we watched.
Mirror's not serialized though. You can watch it in any order.
True,
So you can
true,
you
true.
can just pick up and watch one, and like you're fine.
I remember we
Westworld
watched
is in order.
in our first LA trip. We watched Bandersnatch, and I went through it one time, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And I went to go shower, and when I came back, you were still playing. You were still like, you're like, yo, did you know that you can choose different options even after the fact? Whoa, dude! And like you just like had watched the show like a couple of more times.
It's kind of like a video game.
Yeah, it's like a choose your own adventure book, but in a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was weird. You couldn't. That was the thing is like I figured with that you couldn't change the whole thing,
You
but
can
it was
change the
weird. Like
narrative. It's
you could
really
change the narrative, but some things that were funny is like you could go back and choose different things. You could go back to certain places, but it was funny because I did them. And like you would choose one thing and something would happen, and I'd do another one and the same thing would happen, but because of a different reason. Like the guy's gonna shoot someone, and what are you gonna say? Whoa, that looked weird, right? Whoa, a 3D movie. Whoa, dude, I'm gonna shoot you. If you're watching the video
Dude,
right now,
ow,
I'm being
stop
so
hitting me.
stupid.
Poking me in the eye, motherfucker. Jesus.
What if my hand just opened up and it was an actual gun? Anyways, but like you would say like, what are you gonna say to this guy with the gun? And you can be like, fuck you, or you can be like, I surrender, or whatever, and like either way he shoots you, so like you feel like you're more in control, but like really he'll
Well,
be
the
like,
way-
"Haha,
The
don't
way
care,"
I
and kill
understand
you.
it
like
is that there's an opening scene, and you have two options, and then basically that means left or right, and then you have another scene and you have two options, and it basically means left or right, and then you have another scene that's two options that basically means left or right, and like every scene that gives you options branches off, so at the end of it, it all looks like an NBA March Madness bracket.
yeah, like
you
a
know,
reverse bracket where you start at one thing, but the thing is
Yeah.
actually it is like that, but it's way more intertwined. It's not so exact. Like you choose this thing and then this thing happens. It's not so binary. Like it's when you
Well, there's
go
also
back and choose all the
multiple-
options.
There's also multiple answers. Like if you do the same
No, but there's only two
questions,
answers for each one. There's only two answers for
right,
each
but if
thing.
you go through and give the exact same answers every single time, it'll still give you different results because it's still like a dice.
No, it gives you the same thing.
Oh, well, I remember going through and being like, I want the cornflakes and Dad, leave me alone. And I like did that twice and then got different results every time.
I don't think so because I went back and did them different ways and it would give me the same thing. I don't think it's random.
Whatever.
Either way, but yeah, it was. The thing is it felt like you were in more control than you really were, and that was cool. I felt like that was pretty cool because it's just like in a video game. It's like you're gonna do all kinds of different things, but they're still guiding you and steering you towards one final storyline. Like, you know, there's one final thing that you have to do. No matter what choices you make in the game, you are going to end up at this point, and this thing is going to happen. And that's kind of what happened in Bandersnatch.
And it was kind of like, kill your dad or not.
But sometimes the ending would be different. Like, sometimes the dad would live and you'd die, or sometimes you'd kill the dad, or what, you know, whatever. But anyways, doesn't really matter. But yeah, Breaking Bad is the shit. I like it so far. I just started season 2. And it's weird how much technology and stuff changes too in that short of time, because that show came out in 2013, and
they were using 10-year-old technology though. They were using flip phone. They intentionally made it like a decade earlier. They wrote it that way on purpose. Yeah, because
for sure.
a lot of the storyline wouldn't work if they had modern technology. If they had modern cars, if they had modern phones, if like the police had like modern systems, it just wouldn't work. So they had to write it as if it was done
like the 90s,
in like
the early 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case for sure, because it definitely feels older than 2013 for sure, because they're all using flip phones and house phones. They're still using home phones.
Flip phones, house phones.
But dude, some of the writing in that show is
the cars that they're driving.
Yeah,
the writing is amazing, and that's one of the things that's crazy about that show is it's so dialogue heavy, but it's also super actiony. So it's like the opening scene is always a big action scene that was set up the week before. So the previous episode ended on a cliffhanger, so the opening scene of the next one is like this big thing that happens. And then you spend like 45 minutes to 50 minutes just talking basically, and then there's another start of a cliffhanger towards the, so every episode ends with you going blah, blah. You know, there's,
and it's just so addicting because you want to keep watching too.
Yeah, and then you start the next episode and then it happens and then you're like, oh god, the more drama, who's doing what. You know, my favorite thing about that whole thing is like the transition between like when does Walt become Heisenberg and when does Jesse actually lose it. Because like the way I see it is that both Walt and Jesse are on a downward spiral, like on a really bad decline, but Walt has like a peak before he hits the valley. Like they both.
I haven't really gotten that far yet, so I haven't seen the declines yet. Well, I mean, I kind of have, but yeah, I think that it's definitely like a weird perspective into both of their heads because they're both living such different like lives in the beginning. But they end up, it's so weird. It's parts of it are like a buddy cop movie because they're like, you know, the silly guy and the serious guy, and like one's this professor and his delinquent student team up to become, you know, like it's so funny how they that premise is just so genius of like these two unlikely pair end up doing all these illegal activities together. But there's this also kind of like underlying thing where you're like, oh, this whole scheme that they're doing is like bad, but you're still rooting for them because of different reasons. And
yeah, it's like they want to sell crystal meth to make money and to gain power. And it's like every season there's like a new villain basically, and the whole point of the season is like destruction of the villain, and then there's a lot of like foreshadowing. Like there's some stuff that happens in like season 2 that you don't learn about till like the end of season 4, and you're like, oh, that's what that fucking was. Like,
yeah, I love the foreshadowing, dude. Like some of it is just so genius because you're like, that's definitely going to come into play later. And I love
multi-dimensional storylines too. Like it reminds me a lot of like the Lost storylines, where it was like how deep does it go? Like who actually knows who? You know, like it's this crazy, insane like down the rabbit.
Did you listen? I forget what they were talking about Lost the other day. I think it was on Joe Rogan. Did you hear that?
It was him and Chris were talking about how like most shows don't make it past 6 seasons because that's too much, and they were talking about how like Lost had 120 hour-long episodes. Fuck.
That's kind of how I'm feeling about Westworld right now, because I loved season 1 and season 2 were so good, and now it's kind of like at the point where, you know, in Lost where they get off the island and they're doing shit off the island. That's exactly where Westworld is right now, because they got out of Westworld. Well, so it's just like
gonna have to go back for the story arc, probably.
Probably, but it's J.J. Abrams too. That's the thing. Both of them are J.J. Abrams. It's just like Lost.
Season 3 of Lost was the worst one because it was all them back in their normal lives. We have to go back. You know, like Jack always talking about having to go back.
Yeah, it's different, but it's just weird because it's like when you're inside of this unique premise of this box, like J.J. Abrams is so good about like writing like a unique idea, but then just has so much trouble like tying a nice bow on it and ending it before it just like gets ruined. Kind of like, for me, it's kind of like Avengers. It's like, okay, we get it. How many fucking more movies can we milk out of this shit? Like, you know, I don't know. So I think sometimes you got to know when to end a good thing. And unfortunately, because of money.
Disagree. I think a lot of shows, like you're going to get a kick out of this. Some of my favorite shows end by being canceled. Because if they would have ended it by trying to wrap up all the storylines, they would have fucked it up really bad. So like I don't mind watching a show until it get canceled. And then there are some shows that I'm like way into, but then it gets to like season 4 or 5 and everything is just so meta that I'm like, I don't even understand the fucking storyline anymore, because all you're talking about is stuff that happened in season 2 and season 3, and like that has nothing to do with what season 1 was about, and everything's changed, and what about the character development, and you're like,
that's
I'm so confused.
I didn't like The Dark Knight Rises. Like The Dark Knight was so good, and then The Dark Knight Rises was just like garbage because they just tried to like up the ante like even further. It's like The Dark Knight and Batman Begins were so good because they were so raw and so realistic and believable. And then The Dark Knight Rises, it's like, okay, now you have a spaceship. Cool. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they took it past the level of like realness, and they just, I don't know, they tried to outdo themselves again and again and again. It's like, we liked the other ones because you weren't going that crazy.
That trilogy is my favorite superhero trilogy ever. Like the way that writer, Christopher Nolan did it was just insane. And honestly, Batman Begins, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it wasn't until The Dark Knight happened that I was like, oh shit, this is good. Now I have to go back and like watch, you know, the Batman Begins. And then when Dark Knight Rises came out, I was like, this is also pretty badass, but why though? Bane, I thought Joker already did this. Now we got Bane, who's like a terrorist now, and then now Batman has to go back to the place that he was at in the first movie to get more training, and like
the thing is I wanted to like The Dark Knight Rises so badly that I convinced myself that I loved it right off the bat, and I even went and saw it 2 times on opening day. I saw it at midnight, and then I went back the same day and watched it at like 6 p.m. or something, and I loved it. And then like after thinking about it and after like talking about it and after watching it again, I realized that I was just like hyping myself up to like it actually, and I wasn't like, I wanted to like it more than I actually did like it.
Dude, that's how I felt about Batman versus Superman. I so badly wanted that to work. It just didn't.
It did not. That was one of like the
biggest
Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill trying to fucking fight in like a weird Gotham.
I didn't go watch it.
It's like Alien versus not Alien, and you're like, huh? Like it's yeah. I agree,
like,
AJ.
The build up to it, but when they fight, it just.
And Ben Affleck's suit looks so stupid. His big, bulky, blocky, chunky, metally, like, fucking exoscoot.
Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode, you can click right here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can click right here. If you want to watch more clips, we got 2 more right over here.